Hello, hello. Again, we're starting in the port. This is going to act as a follow-on on my Ryujo video. We're testing the new modules that have been introduced for carriers with the dropping of patch 0.9.1. In this case, we're testing the aerial torpedoes modification 1, which adds 5% of torpedo speed. We just tested on the Ryujo, and now we're going to test on the Kaga. So we brought our 55 knot torpedoes up to 58 knots with this upgrade. In exchange, we've taken off TBM 1, so we've lost 5 seconds of extra aim time on our torpedo bombers. Do note that there's also this new Squadron Consumables Modification 1, which increases the action time of Squadron Consumables, so that's Torpedo Bomber Heal and also just Engine Cooling Consumable on all squadrons by 50%, but we will not be testing that in this video. In any case, I believe the Kaga with her excellent 6.01 kilometer detection torpedo bombers does like using Concealment Expert as one of her key strengths and advantages over the Shokaku, which tends to take Flight Control Modification 1. Note that heal time does act as basically immunity time for torpedo bombers, and it has a default runtime of 5 seconds, so this 50% bonus would bring it to 7.5%, or 7.5 seconds, which is not an insubstantial amount. But for the Kaga at least, I'm not going to be testing that module. Instead, we're just testing the effect of aerial torpedoes. Now the Kaga has her 3x4 setup. Or sorry, 4x3 setup is the format I prefer to use in terms of the phrasing. On her torpedoes, these are pretty low damage torpedoes and are normally used against larger targets, unlike the more universal IGN torpedoes of the Tech Tree ships, which launch them in pairs because of the wide spread of the Kaga's 4x3 setup. She prefers slightly larger targets. Now, we're also on a new map with the patch, Northern Waters, so I'm completely unfamiliar with this map. My first match on it, apparently it's updated Epicenter. We're against an enemy Shokaku, and what looks to be, 6 to 8 matchmaking, so we're top tier, so an interesting change. When I did my Ryuho video just now, we were bottom tier twice, so this will be a bit refreshing. Anyhow, we'll see what this Northern Waters map is like. It's snowy and kind of gloomy, although that plinth of rock over there is kind of pretty. Pretty symmetrical, and apparently in Domination mode there's a cap here, a cap here, and a cap here. It reminds me of a compressed version of Mountain Range, and Mountain Range is kind of a shit map, so we'll see. Anyway, I'm gonna scout with my rocket planes anyway, but we will be testing the torpedo bombers throughout. The torpedo bombers are the Kaga's best squadron anyway, so I'm sure we'll have plenty of opportunities to make use of it. In the meantime, did they stretch out the destroyer icon? I feel like they did. Anyway, in the meantime, we'll be hunting for these destroyers, the Akazuki, Travis, and Niska. There's basically no AA ships in this game outside of the Baltimore, so this is very, very fragile, or generous matchmaking. Someone bought a Lund. Come on, guys. Please don't buy premiums that you can earn for free by playing the game. Now, I'm not one to tell you how to spend your money, but that just feels foolish to me. Still hunting for those destroyers. Someone's in the second ring. Found the Baltimore. There's the Akazuki. He's turning toward me now, so I'm gonna arm early as I crest the mountain. Looks like he's turning out and past. If he turns in now, he's gonna actually dodge me thanks to the kind of stiff lock-in, but I do manage to score a hit. This third orange HP rocket plane is gonna be my turning plane. Basically, I'm going to expend its life as I engage the turn and make the strike with what remains. Oh, overboosted there, so I overshot. Looking for a good target. This Albemarle will serve nicely.
Autopilot mode enabled.
Now, normally I would want a larger target. The Albemarle is a tier 8 British Heavy, now available for all users. It's left early access at this point on patch 0.9.1. But cruisers should do 30 plus knots, and they're slightly smaller than battleships, which means it's quite challenging to hit them with all the Kaga torpedoes, so we'll see if 3 knots of speed helps. in that regard. There's also a Roma lagging behind that we could hit, and also a Devonshire pushing ahead in front of Torpedoes, which has fairly weak AA. My god, Jamada is getting harassed by the Shokaku, so since I'm considering that center cluster, I will drop him a fighter. Baltimore's at a pretty good angle for me. The problem is he's close to a fighter bubble.
We're under attack.
You know what, because he's at such a nice angle, I'm gonna go for him. Now do note he's very easily able to accelerate here. But, as you can see, he beached himself, although I might have shorted my torpedoes by accident, but my follow-up strike, what remains, will be good. Okay, so I missed entirely, and he's popped a defensive fire. I'm gonna launch early and just observe the torpedoes, see if the increased speed helps. Should be 2 hits here, I think. And not quite on the other 2. You can see that wide pattern of spread on the torpedoes, preventing me from getting a particularly accurate drop on the relatively small target of the Baltimore.
Maintaining present course.
Now, they do have center control, unfortunately, in this epicenter game. So I'm gonna have to convince some of my destroyers to actually go into the capped circles. One of them is here, and one of them's out here in an epicenter game, so I'm actually going to contest the outer ring myself because, well, we need that ring. Not necessarily something you want to do all the time, but you do what you have to do.
We're under
Hunting for
attack.
Jervis. He's in his
Approaching
smoke.
target.
Now the Kaga is not exactly a specialist in terms of hunting destroyers, especially for torpedoes. But I will spot and basically provide bracketing torpedoes to force them to stay on course. Oh, the extra speed there definitely mattered. I actually would have missed that strike on that Jervis without the extra speed. So there's one instance. Gonna cycle squadrons. Still want to try and win this game, so I'm gonna hit that Roma with my higher explosive dive bombers. Looks like my second bracketing rig did not find a target. Guys beside a whole bunch of ships, so I don't really care how heavy his AA is personally. The fact that he's beside so many enemy ships means that I will slingshot in. It's already on fire, unfortunately, so it's not the most efficient attack. We do dispatch an enemy ship, Devonshire, which will buy us some time, but we're still down in terms of kills. Looking for a safe location to contest the second ring at this point. Players not understanding how to play the epicenter mode is fairly normal. Looks like all 3 enemy destroyers are in the center. We're going to continue to bleed points. As you can see, they have 2 rings completely uncontested, and I'm the closest ship to the center, along with the Akatsuki. There are some of the destroyers. Gonna try for the Akazuki because he's the most sluggish. He's moving fairly straight. Now he's a fairly slow destroyer. Does about 32, 33 knots.
Concentrate fire on the enemy warship.
So I'm gonna miss. No, my Z-23, which didn't go anywhere near the cap, is absolutely dead.
Fighter airborne.
We're under attack. Returning. We're under attack.
I really don't know what I'm supposed to do in this situation to salvage this game. This just looks essentially unwinnable.
Airborne.
Awkward angle for the Roma, but I do want to make 2 passes onto him. We're at 900 points now. I honestly need to get into the cap. Someone pinged me back earlier. Just there, you saw the get back ping. But
Approaching target.
well played. That's a questionable statement at best. Anyway,
Fire.
setting fire. This game was an absolute demonstration of how not to play epicenter. But given the kill differential, I suspect There might be a player skill gap as well.
We're under attack.
Oh, my bomb's slinging into the water. Not exactly helpful. Gonna block the center cap here.
Autopilot mode disabled.
I have no choice but to go in if I want to buy some time, and I will fight the people who are, well, fighting.
Airborne.
Unfortunately, someone dies. Ooh, that was obviously a pretty rough game, but what can I say? My teammates may have not been trying very hard, let's just say. Woo! World of Warships, my friends. Not too much to say there. I got to test. I did get that one nice hit onto the Jervis with the torpedo bombers. The purpose of these games, of course, is not to demonstrate guilty carries the game gameplay, but is in fact to just test out the efficacy of the module, so I don't really care that I lost. Did get to get one test case there. Sadly, on that new map, because it's updated Epicenter and players don't understand how to play Epicenter, well, you saw the result. An absolute massacre where I believe I was actually the ship closest to the center as the aircraft carrier, so that kind of gives you an indication of how that game was going. Now, bottom tier once more. Oh, I have a clanmate in my team. Interesting. But anyway, bottom tier in the Kaga against the Graf Zeppelin, Montana, Ismo, Massachusetts. So, of these, I guess I want to hit the Ismo. These two are pretty thorny. And then Goliath, Hindenburg, Brindisi, Arctic-Cow. So I want to hit the Arctic-Cow and maybe the Brindisi. These two are a bit thornier, not American, but thorny. There's a Gearing that's actually a Xing Yang. Some of those are RNG players. Pretty quality players, relatively speaking. Better than average for sure, so. Or at least that is my assumption. What is my clanmate in? He is in the Drake? No, I'm looking at the wrong person. He is in the Shimakaze. No, don't complain, clanmate. Why are you leaving? Question mark, clanmate? No. Even if you're disadvantaged, I would say you probably want to still scout A at the very least. You have a Wooster with you, which will protect you from the carriers, so I disapprove of this line of play, just for the record. We should do BC. No. This is... Alright, well, let's just say I disagree with this Shimakaze's philosophy and leave it at that. I do find the enemy destroyer here, the Xing Yang. He turns off his A after some brief initial attacks, but I've already found him, so what's the point? He's beside a Goliath, so
We're under attack.
kind of leading his turn. Two rockets. Goliath AA seems fine. The Goliath is also pretty alone. Now he's a fairly tanky heavy cruiser as I lose the rest of my rocket plane squadron. The A6M50 as bottom tier, not exactly the most durable. But we will get to stress test his AA suite because it's going to go toward A. Now do note that it's going to be hard to hit him with torpedoes after a little bit. There's a pretty attractive Ismo in what might well be their weak flank. I'm going to drop a fighter since I'm here. The contested B cup. Considering the Ismo as well, because as I mentioned, he's a relatively weak A target to Cow with him. Alright, so worst case scenario, we can use the Cow who's going to separate from the Ismo as a test case. The Cow does 36 knots, so it should be suitably challenging to hit with my Kaga torpedoes. Okay, why is there AA here? Okay, there's an Gearing here. Well, a destroyer will serve just as well.
We're under attack.
He's moving straight against my torpedoes, okay. Looks like I'll clip him with the first two if they're not short. Oh, sadly for me, I launched a bit too late. Because because it's just a gear, I'm gonna pop my heel and take my time, try and circle, get a good hit onto him. Circle out and away from the Ismos, intervening AA, hit some flak there, as you saw.
Engaging
I'm
enemy.
trying to predict his drop, but I'm running out of plane health, so
We're under attack.
I'm gonna circle with this last plane and use the HP just to spot him out a bit longer. I did miss everything, but the first drop would have been pretty good. If only I hadn't shorted it.
Autopilot mode enabled.
Maintaining present course.
Okay, well this isn't advisable, but I have 3 destroyers with a gearing in front, so I'm gonna go spot them out. Or spot the gearing out with my torpedo bomber squadron. Enemy grabs up and sending APTVs, so no one cares about those. As for a destroyer, it's just gonna spot you out as an annoyance, but there's no one else around to really shoot at them, so they should be fine. And with 3 of them there, hopefully they'll open up onto this gearing. It's gonna turn out and away from them, so my approach angle is already gonna be flubbed, but I'm gonna force him to sail straight.
Approaching target.
Arming early, but not as early as I might otherwise normally do because I'm missing TBM-1.
We're under attack.
Alright. Those planes... or those destroyers do dispatch him. Gonna head towards this Takao, my initial test target.
Fighter airborne.
Approaching target. We're
Don't have my
under
planes weren't
attack.
spotted until basically just now when I briefly map keyed to adjust the course of my carrier. This Takao is doing 36 knots, so I do have to give him a fair lead. His engine's almost out though, I think. It's hard to tell with the Arpeggio of Blue Steel collab ship reticles. Fighter does arm on me, but I did manage to break his rudder with a torpedo strike. Looks like that prompted a damage control, but thanks to the Takao's low AA.
Taking fire.
See these torps sail onto the target. Looks like 3 torpedo strike, if they're fast enough. And there are my 3 arms. At this point, gonna get as close to the battlefield as possible. Okay, that's not what I wanted. And I'm gonna chase the Asashio, provide some spotting for my Georgia and Shimakaze.
Concentrate fire on the designated target.
Gonna ignore the southern side. There's an Asashio. I don't know if my Shimakaze should be wasting time on this Asashio, but I mean technically the Asashio could well kill the Georgia, so it's fair enough. Just gonna drop a fighter and let them deal with it and chase after the cow. I don't want to spend
Fighter
too much time
airborne.
here. There's a Goliath inside that cab, so I'm gonna take a slightly
We're
safer
under
route.
attack.
Thus far, that extra torpedo speed was useful against the attack onto the cow, which otherwise would normally be fairly difficult to hit, and that first gearing attack, although that was flubbed on my part, because I put the torpedoes into the water a little too
Taking
late.
fire.
Pretty good first strike. Sashio is lit by the Georgia's proximity spotting at this point, and he dies quite quickly to Georgia.
Our team has taken the lead.
I have 2 extra planes, so I'm actually going to take my time to get a proper alignment, rather than try for a drop with an awkward angle. You can see the Japanese dive bomber, not exactly
Approaching
great
target.
in terms of turning circle performance. Last gas for filling.
Taking fire.
Again, not a perfect drop angle, but I'll take my 2 bomb hits. There's a Goliath in that cab, so I'm going to make a pass onto him. He's the closest target. Now, note he is obstructed from this angle, so I'm just going to guard his bow, more or less. He's going to be forced forward, since he's under fire currently, so... Arming at a distance I would normally arm with TBM-1, maybe a little unwise,
We're under attack.
considering that I don't
Waypoint
have
reached.
TBM-1 anymore, so... Should probably adapt my gameplay for that, pop my heel at this point. This AA seems unimpressive at best, and poor at worst in terms of my assessment. Okay, that is annoying because I'm not going to be able to lead properly, but him firing means he's going to reveal his position. Okay, I don't know why his A appears to be basically not functioning, but it should be fairly difficult to dodge. Kind of put the reticle onto him halfway, so I should hit at least 2 torpedoes and 3 if he slides forward. Oh, there's 2. Don't really know what that Goliath is doing in there, but I mean, if that's what you want to do with your life. He's healing now. Note that the British heavies do have access to a super heal. However, he catches a gearing torpedo, and at this point, I am going to chase down this RNG gearing.
Fighter airborne.
Looks like he's trying to make things awkward for me for my first strike. That's fine, I'll come back for you. Straddle and only in caps, but should be able to loop around fairly easily. Need to move my carrier hull closer now. Got 4 bombers left, so I'm going to manually drive these in, I think, onto that Takao. Can't see the Brindisi anyway. He's launching a fighter, but I'm only here for 1 attack. And it's going to occur in less than 6 seconds. Remember that the catapult fighter does have a 6-second arm time. He's moving fairly straight, so no need to lead too much. 2 bombs, I'll take it. This fighter engages me. But my 9.9 detection hull is not exactly the easiest thing to spot. Going to help this Georgia out against this Brindisi. Haven't done too much in the ways of damage in this bottom tier match. Brindisi smoke should fade soon. And indeed, there we go. Do note, I think we got a fire on the Takao earlier. I'm just going to cruise without using boost ahead of his bow, then turn it. Then engage him at the edge of my detection. Well, that is a new calm message. Now normally I would lead a 36 knot Takao a little more, but thanks to the increased speed, I think we'll be fine leading in such a manner. Only hit 1 torpedo because he is actively maneuvering, but he has to maneuver against me and the Georgia. So I'm fairly confident that this should be fine. I've pointed him back towards the Georgia at this point, so either he dies to my torpedoes or he dies to my Georgia. I don't really care. Scored another hit. And my torpedoes are basically herding him toward the Georgia.
Taking fire.
About to heal, but the Georgia main battery should deal with him shortly. Alright, my Georgia's bleeding out pretty hard, shooting at the Brindisi instead of the Takao, even though he has torpedoes. So I guess I might have to finish it. Alright, didn't quite get the hit that I needed. Gonna dive out and away though, because the Takao launched a fighter. It did get trimmed by the Georgia, but best not to risk these things.
Approaching target.
Note the awkward initial approach angle that can be corrected on this Brindisi.
We're under attack. Returning to ship, taking fire.
Incapacitated something. Still heading towards the rest of the fight as I assist my Georgia with this Brindisi.
Our victory is in sight.
Engaging enemy. Taking fire.
An initial bracketing strike. Would have been better to turn the other way, I think, but... Let's see how the chase torpedoes do with the extra speed. I missed expect him to turn a little out and away from the torps in order to dodge. Or he could not and take 2, okay. It's fine for me too.
Our team is taking the lead.
I'm going to hit him with one more torpedo, but it's definitely not going to be fatal. Okay, unless he gets shot first, in which case, yes, it will be fatal. So there we pick up our first kill. Kind of hoping one of my allies dies so I get a bit more test time.
Engaging enemy. We're under attack.
Slingshotting into the Massachusetts AA.
Engaging enemy.
He's coming toward me so I can arm fairly early. Alright, that was a waste of time. I'm gonna actually just
Taking
ditch
fire.
these because, well,
Returning. We're under attack.
thanks to that HP, I'm not gonna be able to hit the Hindenburg, but that game's gonna time out anyway. Alright, so again, pretty piss poor performance. Only 65,000, although this time I at least did manage to scrape by for the victory. 12 torpedo hits, 10 bomb hits, 7 incaps, 1 kill, 2 fires, 1 defender ribbon, 7 spotting ribbons, and 2 torpedo hits, or 2 rocket hits. Team score wise, not too bad, but the game was pretty stompy, and as I mentioned, my Shimikaze, which went around the world, well, he didn't do that much. A bit of a rest in pieces there. Maybe let someone else deal with the Asashio in that case. Damage-wise though, you'll note that even though I focus mainly on cruisers rather than battleships, the Kaga would prefer to go after battleships instead of cruisers with battleships, or with her torpedoes. I did manage to land a fair number. Now, Japanese torpedoes are fairly fast, so there's probably only 1 or 2 torpedoes that I landed with speed that I couldn't have done earlier, or prior to this patch, but still, it's not a horrible difference. There were still moments though where I definitely missed out on having TBM1, such as that first strike on the Goliath, where I armed the attack out a bit too early because I'm not used to having the reduced attack time. Still, I don't know how I feel about it yet, so in the case of the Kaga, I will play one more round. Matchmaker seems to be pretty full of ships right now, so shouldn't be too difficult to get some further test cases, as you can see the queue pop in front of me. And this last game will once more be bottom tier. We're against the enemy Lexington. The mode is domination on the map loop. And we got Conqueror, GK, Musashi, North Carolina, Massachusetts, Henry IV, Seattle, Drake, Cleveland, Gearing, Asashio. This Drake is from the last game. I think he was on my team. So this should be interesting. Notably, there's a Henry IV, which does about 40 knots, and is fairly difficult to torpedo because of her high speed. So if we can get our hands on her with our torpedoes, we should get a pretty good indicator of if the speed helps. Typically, you'll land about 2 torpedoes on the Henry IV if he maneuvers. So if we can get that up to 3, I would say the upgrade is pretty good in that regard. Scouting with my very expendable zeros. You got 24 of them on deck at the start of the match, and honestly I wish you could push them off the side and just use torpedo bombers and dive bombers, but that's another discussion entirely. They have their uses though. They're a little more precise than dive bombers, so in a pinch they are useful against destroyers and low HP cruisers. So I should check A and B because of the mirrored spawns, avoid C. Just gonna sweep across. My Z is closing in on the cap zone. Alright, you can see these ships migrating here. What this suggests is that the B cap destroyer abandoned B and he's going to C, because ships usually follow the destroyer. People love following their little destroyer buddy, and they're really scared to go anywhere that don't have a destroyer, even if they technically would have a decent shot. They just don't want to play with that vision disadvantage, which is understandable, but makes behavior predictable. Now is this moving me away from scouting A, which is contested? No, it's just being taken by my ally right now. You can see that Cleveland and Seattle kind of pushing me away. I'm going to take my time with my scouting here, and this Conqueror is a good target for just after this initial scouting phase. I think at this point, I'm considering dropping a fighter and trying to find something
Fighter
else.
airborne.
I am willing to hit that Cleveland with my 6 remaining zeros. His HP does not recuperate, so... Okay, if I hit a flat cup like that, obviously, I'm gonna lose the whole squadron. My deep dive does reveal the Asashio B, who's playing fairly cautiously. So even though it cost me a whole squadron and I did no damage, still worth it in terms of information. Massa gonna cross over with the GK, Seattle gonna hold that corner. Conqueror returning back. Musashi headed toward A, so we're gonna look for this Musashi. I was gonna initially look for this Massachusetts, but as you can see from his direction and the GK's direction, they're gonna cross over. Musashi probably turning, I would imagine. Seeing the rest of his team flee and turning. Ooh, those are some long-range torpedoes. So gearing 16s is more than likely. So we're gonna look for the gearing and the Musashi. Musashi's still on his previous vector. Well, a Musashi, even in the past without the speed, would have been easy to get 4 hits on, so let's just try for our 4
We're
hits.
under attack. Approaching target.
Touching the Massa AA here. Musashi launches his fighter, but I'm still going to get my second attack off.
Taking fire.
Can't quite see what he's doing. Oh, he's reversing. I'm going to miss some of those. Hopefully my increased speed should mean that we'll skim him on the bow. Whoa! Okay. Got a defensive fire flak club spawning on me. Which does occasionally happen, which obliterates my squadron quite instantly. So it could be Drake defensive fire or Henry defensive fire in that range. I think it's Henry defensive fire. I'm gonna relaunch, however. I know he's reversing now and he's still pretty isolated. Still have yet to do damage in this bottom tier game, but that's fine. We can afford to play it slow. Musashi's accelerating now, escorted by that Drake. And I lost 12 aircraft just now, but as you can see, the Kaga doesn't really care because of her enormous reserves. Normally I'd be arming the drop at about 7.5 to 7 kilometers, but I'm going to wait a little more. I learned my lesson from last game, or last few games, where I had some arm time errors, which did cost me quite dearly. Don't want to lead as much as that. Because of that, someone's defensive fire is still running, / someone else popped their defensive fire in one of the two. 1 strike, 2 strike, 3 strike. Not quite 4 strikes.
Approaching target.
So that cost me a whole bunch of aircraft. 6. I don't want to contest it as Sashio. Just playing to push them off the cap right now. Oh, Seattle making a move. Alright. I'm okay sending my dive bombers in. I still have 24 more, even if he kills every last one of these.
Approaching target.
Note that he's approaching me, so I can arm quite early. Dive bombers have a lot of time on the Kaga
Under attack.
to adjust. 3 out of 4 bombs and 8,000 damage, and fire is not bad at all. He's maneuvering fairly heavily. He takes some citadel damage or something.
Approaching target.
Arming the attack mid-turn. You can see his
Taking
short-range
fire.
AA is not that impressive. And at this point, he should be easy enough to finish. Massachusetts is beached on me.
Maintaining present course.
Not the brightest. Let me see if I can reverse off for him. No, that's not a reverse off map. No minimap mode. Stop that.
Taking fire.
There we go. Jesus Christ.
Approaching target.
Took so long, I'm on top of the Seattle.
Taking fire.
Should be a nice easy hit. Either he stops moving, or he takes them. And I reckon he's not going to stop moving, so. Should be a kill there.
Enemy cruiser sunk.
Easy first blood.
Our team has taken the
Conqueror
lead.
is notably isolated. Oh, I need to move my whole haul actually. They're pushing in. Move out and away from the Henry 4. Gonna use all three of these planes in terms of this package to punch through rather than healing. Oh, my carrier hull is spotted, so I'm in danger.
Fighter airborne.
Chase torpedoes.
Autopilot
Alright,
mode
my
disabled.
hull's in a really rough spot because of what happened. So I am gonna have to attack this Drake and force him behind. One torpedo clips the Thunder or Conqueror. I don't know what that is, a GK. So let's kill him because, well, he's gonna kill me. Oh, BB shells inbound. Alright, I'm probably not gonna survive this, to be honest. Frankly speaking, my forward position is costing me here.
Returning. We're under attack.
Don't have a full squadron of that. I am gonna score Flood on that GK though.
Nice
Which will
work.
score me another kill.
Enemy battleship sunk.
Should have been paying attention to the position of my teammates.
Our victory
I'm
is
on my
in
last
sight.
squadron now. Need to consider my targets carefully. I want to be able to find a target that's isolated enough to make 2 passes. Conqueror is pretty isolated, but it's Conqueror is the problem. I don't want my damage to be ineffectual. In terms of winning the game, we should win from this position. Quite advantaged, as you can see. But you never know, so I do want to secure maximum impact. This low HP North Carolina is actually a good candidate. Problem is he's escorted by a Henry. I have 2 minutes more to consider and deliberate. It'll take me about 45 seconds to execute 3 attacks. Just trying to find the correct approach angle for the North Carolina. Alright, I've committed. Remember, I have nothing to go back to, so 2.5 kilometers for a 28 knot battleship. And you can see right at the very end when it was ready,
Our
I was
victory
able
is
to
in
make this
sight.
drop. Unfortunately, my allied Thunderer basically kills off the target I was going for, leaving me with nothing.
Approaching target.
I try and get 2 bombs off.
We're under attack.
We get 1 out of 2, so not the greatest, but it'll do. Anyhow, not gonna keep you guys for too long. We've done our testing more or less. Thus far, my assessment of the module is that it's alright. I would not say that for Japanese carriers, at least because of how fragile their planes are, that the upgrade is strictly speaking, well, the new module is strictly speaking an upgrade over TVM1. TVM1 definitely still has its place from my initial early testing of the Kaga and the Shokaku, so continued testing will be necessary. Tomorrow though, I'm going to cover the Audacious. For now I'm going to give my voice a break. I've been straight commentating for the Ryujo games and the 3 Kaga games that we just played, so it's a good time to give it a rest for now. Anyhow, with that said, I hope you found this review of the new modules helpful, and that the gameplay that you witnessed here with that said module was helpful towards you kind of making your own choice as to whether you want to run it potentially on Japanese carriers, where you get the most benefit, 3 knots instead of 2, out of said module. I hope you enjoyed, and I'll catch you all later. Cheers.